ever wondered why animals have fur and the purpose that they serve? Well, let's take a look at some of the animals that we have here up in the New England area and see what the fur does for them. What fur can do is it can camouflage you so you can't be seen, so you can't be eaten by your predator. It keeps you warm, especially up here with the 4 seasons, having the different temperatures. It can actually act as almost a bug repellent because the bugs can't get through your particular fur, as well as it prevents the animals from getting a sunburn. It stops those UV rays from getting down to the skin below the fur. Let's take a look at some of the furs of the animals that we have here. This first one is the fur of the black bear. It's black. And one of the things about it, it has these guard hairs on the outside and these warmer hairs down underneath it. So there are different types of hair on fur as well. These guard hairs outside, they keep it relatively dry when it's raining or snow or some of these other some of the other things that happen with the weather here. It keeps the bugs away because the hair is so thick that biting insects can't get down into the skin. This thickness and the way that the guard hairs here on the top create kind of a barrier prevents that UV light from getting down in towards the flesh itself. And then the black color, like you've seen with other things, if you're wearing a black shirt, you feel how hot you get with doing that. That helps the bear, especially when they're out moving during the spring when it's still pretty cold. It helps them to stay warm. So that's the black bear. Here's another fur, an interesting fur. This is the red fox. The red fox has this amazingly beautiful fluffy tail, this bright fluffy tail. Why would it need a bright fluffy tail here, a very thick tail? Well, what this fox does is it's active all year round. And so it'll be out in the winter, in the wind. And when you go out in the cold and you step from a warm building into the cold air, you wind up having to, it's almost too cold for your lungs, and it's also very dry. Well, imagine having to be walking around in that the whole time. So what the fox will do is it'll lay down, it'll put its tail, just like a muff, over its mouth. It'll heat up the air that it's breathing, as well as keep that moisture in order to help it to breathe as well. Have you ever breathed on a mirror? If you go to a mirror and you breathe on, you'll see that there's that little foggy part. That's moisture. And that's what's helping this red fox to breathe there, especially during those colder times. 2 things you see on the ears here, on the back of the red fox ears, as well as on its feet, it has black fur. Why would you want to have black fur if the red, which is a great camouflage, because believe it or not, up here, it can even blend in with any of the environments here. It's a very advantageous animal. It can go anywhere and can blend in anywhere. Why would you want black ears and black feet if the rest of your body was meant to be blending in? Remember I talked about that black color with the bear, how it was warm? There's not a lot of meat on the ears, and the feet, especially in the winter, are always in the wet and the cold. So it takes advantage of that radiant heat and heats it up. But that thick fur on the outside makes sure it doesn't get any kind of sunburn or any kind of problem with the heat that comes from the sun directly. This is the striped skunk. And the opposite coloring in nature, opposite coloring or bright colors mean I'm dangerous and I taste bad. And with the skunk, one of the great things about the skunk is you're following those white stripes all the way down to the dangerous end, as it's called. So you'll see some of the striping, especially on animals, will point actually to the dangerous end here. Black and white, I'm dangerous and I taste bad. And the skunk gives you a couple of clues that it's dangerous and it tastes bad. First off, it's the coloration. Second of all, if you're bothering it, what it's going to do is it's going to start stomping its feet. It starts to stomp its feet and makes a little chomping noise, and it goes chomp, 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 chomp. And if you hear that, you know you're getting too close to the skunk. And then if the animal starts putting itself into a U shape to see where you're going and starts to flip up its tail, you're in trouble. Because at that point, what the animal is doing is it's going to squeeze 2 little glands towards the back, and this wonderful smelling spray, as someone once described it, as acid and human waste coming out the end of the tail, and it will spray it at you, and it can spray up to 12 feet away. So get the clue first that the black, the opposite coloring, means I'm dangerous and I taste bad. This is called the ermine, or some people call it ermine, but it's an ermine, and it's the short-tailed weasel, and this animal has a great adaptation for living up here. It's brown in the summer with a little white on the bottom, but this is what its winter pelt looks like. It loses the brown fur and it replaces it with these white hairs, which are actually hollow hairs there. But I have a question for you. Remember we were talking about that black here? See on the tip of the tail? It's black. Why would an animal that's white moving across the top of the snowpack and not wanting to be eaten and also wanting to eat others because it's a predator, why would it have a black tip on its tail? Now we did talk before about having the black making it warmer because you have that heat, that radiant heat that comes from that. But wouldn't it, just having the tip of the tail being black, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you knew that your predator could see you, would you want to attract it to your head, or would you want to attract it to your tail? Yes, you'd want to attract it to your tail. And I've seen several ermine running around without the tips of their tail. So it works. This animal is the bobcat. And this is mostly a nocturnal animal, so a lot of people don't get a chance to see that. Bobcat, and it's known as a bobcat because of the bob on its tail. Where is its tail? Oh, here it is. There we go. The little black tip on its tail. They call it the little bob, and a very short tail. It's called, so a little bob tail on this. And this animal is very nocturnal and will eat. It's a predator as well, and the way it feeds on other animals is it will wait and it will pounce, and it'll pounce and jump on the back of the animal. So by having shorter legs and having a stronger, stouter body, it can actually leap and jump, and then it takes those teeth that are very sharp canines and grabs and bites from the back, and will hold on with those very sharp claws and those very sharp teeth, and will bite and bite and bite to get its prey, to kill its prey for dinner. This is a coyote, an eastern coyote, bigger than the western ones. These are eastern coyotes, and what's interesting about this one is this coyote, the pelt, the fur itself, has those guard hairs that help keep the snow off of the top of it and actually help it for biting insects and things, and not having and preventing UV ray impacts on the skin. But what's really interesting is in the past, coyotes were actually able to mate with wolves, and one of the remnants of that exchange of DNA is a black Y on the back of the animal. And you can see that this animal in its past history actually has had some kind of wolf DNA as part of it. So if you see animal fur, you can appreciate the way that the fur helps keep the animal dry. It keeps it warm. It keeps it from getting sunburn, as well as it keeps it from being bothered by biting insects.